Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Matt Belair podcast. Today our guest needs no introduction as he has been on the show before. And I forgot to ask you, how do you pronounce that? Is it like Nahal?
Nahual.
Nawal, okay, good. That was easier to get you to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means a Toltec master transformation, which is awesome. He's a direct descendant of the Toltecs of the Eagle Knight lineage and is the son of Don Miguel Ruiz. By combining the wisdom of his family's traditions with the knowledge gained from his own personal journey, he now helps others realize their own path to personal freedom. He is a true master, and I am so excited to have him back on the show to share some of his wisdom and talk about the new book, The Mastery of Self, A Toltec Guide to Personal Transformation. Welcome back, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on your show, Matthew. It's awesome to be back again. Thank you.
Yeah, man, my pleasure.
Yay.
So I remember last time we spoke, we were talking about this book, and I was super excited about the title because that's kind of what I'm trying to do, master the self, know myself a little bit more, all that kind of stuff. So can you tell us a little bit about what the book is about?
Well, sure. Well, you can say it has different layers to it. You could say this for me, the mastery of self is basically when I see myself as the experience of being me rather than the definition of being me, that I see myself as a living being. You can say a lot of us have been working on our own personal journey for many years, either personal journey being spiritual or recovery or any spiritual or therapeutic work that one does. And it's all a personal journey because we're dealing with our own relationship. We bring harmony into our own relationship with ourselves. And that expression of, if I'm the one who's thinking in my mind, who's listening? Well, I am. Well, if I'm the one who's listening, who's talking? I am. That's the relationship between me and me, mind and body. You can call it that. And a lot of the work that we do is to heal that body, to heal that relationship with oneself. And that's what you can say the Four Agreements comes in, and a lot of all the other work that comes in to heal the wounds that conditional love has left in our life, how to heal the wounds that domestication left in our life. And then you come to a point where you get an aha moment. You have a moment of clarity. You have this moment where you become aware of not only the concepts that you've been studying for some time or working through, but you have this aha moment, a moment that it stops being something theoretical, it starts being an experience. I get it. Now what? Well, I live in society. I don't live isolated in an ashram. I don't live isolated in a hill nor in a monastery. I live in the environment that I am in. I live with my family. I live with my friends. I live with with the people I love. And everyone is in their own stages in their own development, in their own journey. And how do I stay in my own discipline? I had a great teacher teach me that the key to discipline the key to enlightenment. The key to enlightenment is effort. And what I like to add to that is that discipline is applying that effort every day. That's where I got all confused right there. So basically, it's about a book about, all right, I've been doing all this work. Now what? Well, my relationships with my family, my relationships with my environment, how I interact with the dream of the planet, how I interact with everyday life. And that's what this book comes about, because we are constantly engaging people. So how do we bring that practice into that space? So for me, that's what this book's about. How do we use the energy that animates this body, that animates this mind, to engage life and continue on in my practice, in my craft, to be able to enjoy being me and continue to not only heal the wounds that have affected my relationship with myself, but I also get the chance to heal the wounds that has affected my relationship with people in my life. And that's where this book comes in.
That's amazing. Yeah, man, there's a lot in there. I can definitely relate to that because I was just in Vegas working on a few projects and life was hectic.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me to kind of meditate and do some daily practices that I enjoy and keep me centered and all that. And oddly enough, at the time I was listening to the book, The Unbeatable Mind by Mark Divine.
Yeah.
He's an ex-Navy SEAL. He's amazing. And one of his mentors, it's something Nakamura, I believe, or is that from a different book? I can't remember.
No, I think I know the name Nakamura. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was him, but he was basically saying that his mentor was really adamant about one day, one life, and a lot of his lectures were around that. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about now.
Yeah, well, you can say that that's exactly what I'm talking about. You know, it's just put in a different language, but you know, we all have this human experience, and we use the words that allows us to understand it. For example, right now, who I am at this very moment is the truth. I can't go back in the past and change a yes into a no or no to a yes because life no longer exists in the past. It only exists in my mind, and it probably didn't happen the way I think it happened. And the future doesn't exist yet. It is the consequences of the choices I make in this present moment. In this present moment, this is the only place where I'm able to express my will, my sense of self, my life. And because you can say that the present moment is this moment that moves with me from the moment I am born until the moment I die, is that one place where I'm able to express myself, which means who I am at this very moment, who I am at this exact minute, is everything I am. I am the sum of every choice that I have ever made, but I'm also the youngest I will ever be. How do I want to live my life? How do I want to engage this moment? How will I learn from all the choices I've made in the past, and how I can use them as a reference for the choices I'm making at this very moment? And that is the beauty of it. The one, become aware of the space where I'm able to express my will and see myself for who I am is at this very moment.
That's amazing. Well, there's one thing that I wanted to do because when I got the press kit and just a description of the book, I read it. It's like, oh my God, this is so good. So I'm going to ask you about some of the maybe like tools and tactics, because there's a few things in there that are so good.
Sure.
But just for the audience, I wanted to read just a quick description that I got about the book because it's so amazing. It says, The Mastery of Self, a Toltec Guide to Freedom. The ancient Toltecs believe that life, as we perceive it, is a dream. We each live in our own personal dream, and all of our dreams come together to make it the dream of the planet. Problems arise when we forget that the dream is just a dream and fall victim to believing that we have no control over it. The Mastery of Self takes the Toltec philosophy of the dream of the planet and the personal dream and explains how a person can wake up, liberate themselves from illusionary beliefs and stories, live with authenticity. Once released, we can live as our true, authentic, loving self, not only in solitude and meditation, but in any place, at the grocery store, stuck in traffic, and in any situation or scenario that confronts us. And that is one beautiful description. So, you know, that's kind of like it's not Han kind of stuff too. I love it. His books are so simple. And, you know, he'll talk about being stuck in traffic and how, you know, the miracle of mindfulness and I've used it so many times because patience isn't my strong point. Like getting all pissed off and I'm like, okay, this is an opportunity for meditation. This is an opportunity. So can you give us a couple tips, tools, maybe some pieces of advice? Because that sounds so good.
Well, sure, yeah. Because first you have to become aware that the dream of the planet exists because both you and I are alive. The main function of your mind is to dream, and the main function of my mind is to dream. And unite together create the dream of us. Yes. We are co-creators, and I only control to the tips of my fingers, and you control to the tips of yours. To take things personal is to take assumption or assume responsibility for your will. And that's where the distortion comes in, because it's a lie. I can't control your will. The only way to control the will of another is for that person to willingly give it away. And you can already see the wars that have happened because of that. The best way to control the will of another is to make them doubt themselves. So it comes down to, what do I really control? Well, I control to the tips of my fingers. And at any given moment, that is me. So, for example, the image of the traffic, because I've lived in Los Angeles a part of my life. I lived as a production assistant. I worked in the film industry, and sometimes I got stuck in traffic, and traffic was part of the world and norm. And I saw all the road rage that happened around. People saw angry and things. It's easy to get into it because it feels like you're out of control, and we're so used to using anger to try to control other people or the situation or influence. It's the mastery of a tantrum, and realize that it's a waste of energy. So there you go. You see the results of the consequence of an action, and you realize you have control of that. So what consequence do I want now? If I get mad, is there really going to be a consequence that I like? No. If I get angry and yell at people, is there going to be a consequence that I want? No, it's actually might get worse. And if you get angry at other people and all of a sudden everyone's volatile and boom, crash. So the question is, all right, what do I want to do in this very moment? Because my emotions are real. The anger, the frustration, that's real. It's there. And part of what we do is that we completely dive into it and let the emotion control our action, or we try to suppress it by denying that we have that reaction. And when that happens, well, it festers. It really does bubble up. People have a lot of stress in their body because they're trying to suppress it. Well, the thing about it is you accept it. You honor your emotions. This is how I feel. Sometimes simply honoring this is how I feel alleviates the situation, alleviates the trigger, because you're allowing the emotion to flow through you, but you realize that it's up to you how you want to let it flow out of you. It's called redirecting. So you can, like you described, you can meditate. I usually turn on a news a station like NPR or whatever. I'm in the city I'm in, or I started bringing my audiobooks with me, and I listen to my audiobooks, and I'm listening to that, because I would say, deal with your emails and that, but that may not be the smart consequence either, because if you're not paying attention to the road, even if you're stuck in traffic, that might not be a good consequence either. So you look at the consequences you have, and you realize that you have a lot more control than you think. You can almost consider that an hour in traffic part of your office hours. You won't be dealing with emails, but you can make those phone calls, or you look at all these directions. But at the root of all that is your choice. How do you want to spend this time? Which is truth with life. Well, how do you want to live your life? It always comes down to that. How do I want to use this space and engage it? And all of a sudden we've realized that, of course, some choices are limited because we're in that space, but we're still free to engage so many other things. And that is where frustration tends to shift and go in something that we're able to create or produce or not. And that's a beautiful choice. And the exercise simply is becoming aware of what you control and engaging one whose consequence you want.
Right. Yeah, I loved all that. I was taking a few notes because it's a nice kind of line. Like, so you have a circumstance, and then basically you're thinking about taking responsibility for your actions, because there's going to be a consequence for having road rage. There's going to be a consequence for listening to something positive like NPR or a podcast or an audiobook. There's going to be a consequence because you'll learn that information. And so then you're taking control, responsibility for your own free will. And in this action, this is where I think you talk about, it can lead into the planet and the global vision for the planet, because if I'm waiting to get a coffee and the line's slow and the girl's messing up, and I make the choice to freak out and be rude to her, people are going to witness that, and there's mirror neurons, and then there's just how everything that affects you. So you're and so now that person does that. Now I've seeded that, and that happens to that entire group when I could have something else.
Yeah, because someone who's witnessing you will, like, obviously the barista is going to have a reaction. Her coworkers or his coworkers are going to have a reaction. The people behind you are going to have a reaction, and they're all going to go in different directions. And the emotions are there. Some people will be patient. Some people will not be patient. And there you go. We can't give what we do not have. So if what we're having is that stress and that anger, then of course we're going to share that. But we have a choice on how we want to express it. But the key to that point, like you were saying, is always the awareness of how we want to use that effort. For example, like this is personal, but like considering my family's heart conditions and stuff like that with my father's history, the last few weeks I've been having this issue with my heart. So I've been taking things out. In the middle of the night, I get my heart starts racing. So I started doing a process of elimination, and I've come to discover that it's alcohol that creates this heart palpitation. I see what's happening, then I look at for a process of elimination with my doctor's things, of course, and discover the root of it. Now I have a choice. Now I'm aware that alcohol is creating this action in my body, and now I'm aware of a consequence. If I do this, I might get a stroke, I might have some heart issues, or nothing happened. But like we're saying, the consequence is something I don't want. So I have a choice. Do I continue? Do I shift? Or do I stop? I have control for that. I have control of those three directions. Do I stop? Do I change my style to a lot more moderate, or like nursing a drink, or just ignore it and just keep on plowing through? Well, I look at all the choices and I'm going, you know what? It's going to have to be the variation of one of the two. Either I let go or moderate. I have to still answer. But I see the truth. I don't mask it. That's the honesty there. And I see what I control, and I make a choice. A life-changing choice, because the consequences are life-changing, because that's the awareness. And because I love myself, I'm going to make the choice that best benefits me. So I let go. Whether it's in traffic, whether it's with health conditions, the willingness to see the truth is always important. To not guise it, not mask it, not project something that's not there, is to accept the truth. Someone asked over the weekend, we were doing a workshop, and someone asked me about the fear, like a fear of truth. And I says, well, here's the thing. There's a quote that someone says, if you don't want scary answers, don't ask scary questions. And what I said to this person, yeah, that is true. But the most important part is asking, why is that scary? That's something you can control. Why is that answer and why is that question something that scares you? What is it that, because usually fear is to protect the illusion, is to protect self. So if something scary is because you're trying to protect something. Why is it scary? And you are willing to see it, and you can let go of the fear, which means that you're not afraid of the answer because you're not afraid of asking the question. Or you can say you can ask the question because you're not afraid of the answer, because you faced what makes it fearful. And that's really it. You realize what you have control. If something makes you feel fear, all right, what is making me feel fear? And as we process and work through it, and we begin to let go of what makes us have that fear, all of a sudden we're willing to see life as is. And there you go. One of the things that makes us see the world like a child, and it's not to see it through innocence or naivety, is to be willing to see the world with awe. That's what makes seeing the world like a child be. That we are still in awe of the world, which means we're still willing to see life as is. We ask questions. What about this? What about that? What about this? You see a child like my children, they're 8 and 11. They're still asking, what does that mean? What is that? And I enjoy answering because I'm aware that those questions are leading to expansion of the perception. And we stop asking questions when we don't want to hear something that's going to contradict something, and we narrow our perception. That's what happens as adults. A lot of us have narrowed our perception because we're defending something with so much. The willingness to be in awe, once again, is to let go of those fears that narrow my perception and be willing to see life as is. Once I'm able to do that, the choices I make are informed, and I take action based on the truth. And I say this because, going back to the image of being on inside the traffic jam and seeing all those emotions, you look at what's making you have the anger in the first place. Why is it that this experience in this environment is creating so much anxiety or stress? What is it about this? And if you start looking at it, it's because of control, it's about time, then okay, you face that. You let go of control, and you after the process you do, or you let go of the need to be there on time, or you simply aware of the truth that, this is the consequence of leaving this space at this time. All right, I know that's going to happen, and there's no reason to get mad at it because I knew it was going to happen. All of a sudden, instead of focusing on what you can't control, you look at what you can and find the solutions. Maybe in finding the solutions, you find an alternate road. As living in Los Angeles, I discovered that during that time, you take the city streets as opposed to the highway. Sometimes it's faster to go down Venice Boulevard than it is to go down 10th or Pico or Olympic. If you know Los Angeles at all, that makes sense. But something difficult in the Bay Area, because in order to go from San Francisco to Oakland, you have to go through the Bay. So you have to choose which bridge. Maybe don't drive, maybe take the BART. And all of a sudden your stress goes way down. And that's really it right there. You see, it's all about what actions I can take in order for me to have a consequence that I am grateful for, to have a consequence that will help me reduce my stress, reduce my anger, reduce the risk for me in this moment of any medical issue with me. Instead of getting angry or upset or sad, I look at, okay, well, that's the truth. That's my reality. How do I shift it? How do I change it? And that's the beauty, because that's the gift we have. That's the opportunity we have to make the choice and change the direction that we go in life based on our own self-respect and self-love, and answering that question, how do I want the rest of my life to be? And like you said before, it's steps by steps. At that very moment, it's what the truth is in that choice. So I celebrate that. And that's the cool part of that phrase that we just shared. In that moment, we know how to co-create together, because I know what I'm able to create.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I, again, took a few notes there. First and most importantly, I just wanted to thank you for sharing that story and send you super balls of chi and light and love and energy and healing and support and all that. And everybody listening to this, just take 5 seconds, put Don Miguel in your mind, shoot him a ball of love and energy for the work that you do, for your contribution and all that stuff. So anybody listening, take that time, because you and I both know that stuff is real and it's appreciated. So
thank you so much.
I appreciate love and attention, my friend.
Thank you.
And yeah, so what you said, after that, that's a scary situation, right? And then you get into fear. And that's where a lot of, saints and sages and healers will talk about looking at the darkness. And when you're unwilling to look at the darkness and the scariness in an honest way, in a real way, if you don't do that first, you can't make a real choice and have a real level of free will. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're too afraid of, if you look right at it, how bad it could be.
Yeah.
And if you've got that courage to look at it, then you can make the new choice, but you also liberate. There's a level of acceptance of it. And a lot of the times it's not as scary. Sometimes it's even more terrifying. But as you look at it, it's kind of like, I can relate this to martial arts. So if I'm fighting somebody and he's trying to punch me in the face, that's frightening. But if I look at it, I have a much better chance at avoiding the punch to the face.
Yeah.
And in the same way, we have that opportunity to look directly at what we're facing and accept it, and now make a new choice. And I think maybe this relates to when you're talking about the mask.
Mhm.
You know, what part of us in there doesn't want to see this thing, so we create a new story,
Yeah.
and we can kind of circumvent
Yeah.
the you know, the real thing, because now
Yeah.
we've got this wonderful story, and now we've got
Yeah.
this mask about how healthy we are and how everything's perfect. Then all of a sudden, you know, it's, you know, we get reality just kind of bite us in the butt because we were too afraid. So I think that's really amazing, important information. Um, so there's a bunch of follow-up questions that I want to ask. One of them, there's a few, so I'm going to say a few of them, and you can kind of pick which you'd want to speak on. In the book, or I've heard you say the opposite of love is love.
Mhm.
It's amazing. There is another one that's super important. How do we share unconditional love with others and in addition to ourselves, which I find extremely challenging? We'll go with those two.
Yeah,
And
because they're related. They're one leads to the other.
mhm,
Because the opposite of love is love. To put it more simply, the opposite of unconditional love is conditional love. You see, because hidden anger are not the opposite of love. They're just the symptoms of the real opposite. You know, the opposite of unconditional love is conditional love, because in conditional love we have domestication, a system of reward and punishment by which we model the behavior of an individual. If we live up to the expectation, we get the reward, and if we don't, we get the punishment. And since we are emotional beings, that part of our perception is to this emotional body. Accept that acceptance, that reward feels like acceptance, which feels like love, and the punishment feels like rejection, the lack thereof of love. So we begin to learn conditional love with that domestication, with that conditioning that subjugates our will. And part of that is that, to tie in what you were saying before, is that we only see what we want to see, and that's the creation of mask. You know, the image of Don Quixote. He is worthy of the name Don Quixote if he sees giants, but he's Alonso Quijano if he sees windmill, and Alonso Quijano is his real name, the truth. But because he doesn't want to see the truth, after he sees the windmills, he concocts a story that says, "Oh, Sancho, how easily you are fooled. Don't you know that it's my arch nemesis, the magician, who turned these giants into windmills just to make me look bad?" So now that every time he sees a windmill, he knows that they are giants because the magician turned them into windmills just to make him look bad. Is the story that allowed him to continue to believe his illusion, to continue to believe he is Don Quixote. And from that point of view, we can see that when we look at the people in our life, we see them with conditional love, meaning we want to see what we want to see. So, which leads us to the next question, which is, how do we share unconditional love with others? And it starts with oneself. In the story of Don Quixote, unconditional love simply is the willingness to accept the truth. Those are windmills, which means that he is Alonso Quijano, the truth. He stops pretending to be something he is not, and he sees himself as he is. That is the gift of unconditional love, is the willingness to see life as is, without a filter, without a distortion, to accept the truth. Like we saw at the beginning of the conversation, this present moment, this is who I am. That's the truth. Flaws and all. Well, what if you want to call them flaws? This is what the element. With my heart condition, with my body, I'm a half marathoner, and now how I'm gonna balance that out. That's the truth. That's the truth, and there's a solution, of course. How can I continue to run marathons and train for my marathon, and with I'm aware of this heart? Well, I take out one of the hurdles, which is okay, alcohol. I'll take that out. That'll change things. All right. Now I see the truth. Now I see the thing and accept that this is me. The willingness to see myself and respect myself and accept myself at this very moment is unconditional love. That love is no longer the motivator of this elusive carrot that I'm chasing. Love is the reason why I'm able to take a step forward, because I'm doing it because I'm able to do it. if I become aware of how I use that within myself, unconditional love, that I love myself unconditionally, and with unconditional love, there is also the consequences of my choices. I am responsible for that. That's a very empowering thing, to take full responsibility for my will, for the things I say yes and no, which means I also take full responsibility for the consequences of my action and experience those consequences. Mind you, those consequences can be very positive, and at the same time, and it can also go very negative. That's the beauty. A consequence is a consequence, and a consequence can be a very beautiful experience. It could be a learning experience. It could be a result of the consequence of training is running a full marathon at the time I want. Great. That's a consequence. I'm responsible for that. If you see that for oneself, then to share it, you can only share it if you experience it for yourself, because you know what it feels like, which means I get to see the people in my life for who they are, not for what I want to see, but because of who they are, who they really are. It's like taking off the mask of mom and dad and seeing Miguel and Maria, the people they are. To see life from their 64-year-old point of view and see how life is. All of a sudden, you don't see them as mom and dad, you see them as equals, because here are two people who are living life as best they got and learning what it feels like to enter your mid-60s. That's an experience that I can't relate yet, and I'm looking forward to experiencing it. That's based on what I just said before. I'm looking forward to experiencing it. That's a consequence I want, so I take the actions for it, and I see them as equals, and I see, all right. So to me, that is sharing that unconditional love, the willingness to see the people in my life, to respect them, to make their choices, and to respect them to experience their own consequence in life. And we get to share that. So for me, that is sharing unconditional love. It's called respect.
That's beautiful. Well, again, lots of amazing information and knowledge in there. The one real thing that I took out of it was just the confirmation of, when somebody is acting in a way where they're being angry, or they're mean, or they're just being a straight up a-hole, they've got damage. You don't come, like you said, you can't share what you don't have. They're not walking around with unconditional love. So if you treat their behavior with a matching behavior, it just allows them to kind of spiral that out.
Yeah, it reinforces it.
It reinforces it, yeah. But if you can come from that space of actual real unconditional love and kind of see it from the perspective of, this person cannot be okay to be acting like this. What the heck is going on? Maybe somebody just passed away. Maybe they had a terrible childhood. Maybe all these other things, which are most likely not going to be positives because they're acting this way. And so you show them that love, and you don't, you don't have to get hit by it, but you just show them a little bit of love and acceptance. Now you've shown them something else, and you've given them a new opportunity to heal. And that's your choice and your perspective. And you didn't take any of that anger on. If somebody's walking down the street and, and they say, hey, you bearded piece of crap, and I get all mad, well, now I'm mad. And now I'm feeling anger, and then I look at him and I was like, what the heck is wrong with this guy? He probably needs a hug. And so I'm probably not going to give him a hug, but I'll ask him, man, you want a hug? Like, where are you going? Like, what do you need? Like, how can I help you? Like my human brother, what is this issue that we're having? Like, let's solve it, and let's heal you in this one moment. But in that moment, it's real for him and it's real for me, and it's my choice to react because it happened. And the more I think that we get better at seeing our choices and giving them unconditional love, the less contrast and challenge we're going to deal with in the same level, and we'll just get new lessons. But you'll meet less a-holes. I very rarely meet one. So when people talk about people, what do you do when people are like this and that all the time? I'm like, where are you hanging out? Like, it just doesn't happen to me that much. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but it just is very rare.
And the thing is that if you do meet one, you realize to not own it. Is to respect someone, is to, if they're being that, let them experience the consequences of their choices. It doesn't mean that you have to own their actions. That's what a lot of people get angry about. someone sees someone's behavior and they don't like it, their natural reaction is to own it. And when that happens, of course you want to control someone else's will, because that happens and it doesn't feel good. Yes. To respect someone is to say, all right, well, that's how you're feeling. I'm not going to be subjugated by you. I'm not going to give you permission to make me feel inferior. But at the same time, I'm not going to impose my will over you. What I am going to do is simply, all right, if that's the way you live life, live it. I'm not going to, well, spread it. Meaning, I'm not going to accept that being. The word I'm looking for is contagious, but what's the word appropriate way of using that? I'm not going to contract that disease from you. I'm not going to continue on that energy. So I respect your choice, but I'm going to say thank you very much and and go on my merry way. And that's something we have in our life. We know how to engage, and that's. We are responsible to the tips of our own fingers and how we want to live life. When we do that, we become completely free. We take off so much pressure, because we feel like in order to change the world, we have to take responsibility for the world, but that's not the case. When that happens, then yes, we will always be stressed, and we'll just become with the same anger and rage that a-hole that you described has, because it'll be expressed differently. But when we take off that responsibility, then we take off that weight, all of a sudden we realize that we're able to impact the world, not by taking it on, but by helping build it, by using our voice to construct, to help liberate. Meaning by that is that we are able to, if someone has chosen that path of violence, then I can choose the path of non-violence.
Yes.
And there's less resistance there, because I'm not actively resisting someone. I'm engaging and moving forward on something else.
Yes. Yeah. Beautifully said. And it just allows, so again, by taking control of your own actions,
yeah,
you don't have to worry about them. Then you allow them to be them. And when they're in your space and you have a direct experience, you show that experience love. That's your job. And you do it from this space, and you're free to go, and you can allow them to be them without trying to control them, because you can't. And then you're not holding on to resistance.
Yeah.
And there's so much more I'd love to talk to you about. I know that you have a busy schedule, so I got to let you go, but hopefully I would love a round 3 to go for hours, because again, it's just such a pleasure to talk to you.
Let's do this sooner rather than later. I would love to spend more time, because I know this interview we ran out of time, mostly because of some technical issues with links, and becoming aware that some formats don't play well with other formats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I do look. Let's get together sooner rather than later, because I know we can talk a lot more. So whenever you can, I'm ready to join again. Now that we know how to use the correct way to send a link.
yeah, we'll figure it out. I don't know what this Yahoo versus Google thing is. It's a real thing.
I know. It looks like it, right? Because we went through the Facebook one, and it made it easy. Like there was no problem whatsoever. So I'm not sure what happened there, but it just happened to work better. So now that's a consequence. We learn from it.
Well, we got 40 minutes this time, and then who knows, an hour next time. So just more time and more amazing stories. Where can people find more about the book and your work and seminars and all the great stuff you're up to?
Yeah, you can find me at miguelruizjr.com. That's miguelruizjr.com. That's my home base. And you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all that kind of thing. But my home base is my website. Anyways, I have to go.
I'll take care. Later, man. Talk again soon. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.